welcome back. Yes, Dr. Oji Innocent joins us next. He is the president, Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD. Good morning. Thank you for coming up today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so the demands notwithstanding, first of all, maybe I think you need to tell us. So at the moment, we understand you've suspended this planned strike or protest. Is that the case?
Yes, we put on hold the protest that was supposed to start this morning, but the strike is continuing. We review again in 72 hours. That's the position of our National Executive Council.
So the protest was supposed to hold today. You hit the streets and everything. That's on hold.
Yes.
But at the moment, you're still on strike.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So why did you put on hold the protest?
Well, I think we should start with why we even planned to protest in the first place, because we started this strike just about 2 weeks ago. That was after a series of notices and ultimatum given to the government. And at a point, it was looking as if there was no movement on the part of government to resolve the issues that led to the strike. And being concerned about Nigerians, we felt that it would not be good to just remain on strike with government not making efforts to quickly resolve the issues so that we can come back to work. So our members met on Saturday and decided to escalate so that we can just enter the streets and tell our stories to the citizens of this country for them to understand what the issues are and maybe help us in talking to the government to address them. So that notice came out on Saturday, and we still gave another window for government to meet us and resolve the issues before the protest. And that was why, instead of starting the protest on Monday, we put it for Wednesday. And of course, yesterday, we had a meeting at the Villa. We also had one with the leadership of the Senate, led by the Senate President, His Excellency Senator Godswill Akpabio. And a lot of promises were made. In fact, at a point, they were even wondering why it took so long for government to address the urgent demands that we've been hammering on since we started this struggle.
I thought that what the ministry was begging, the Ministry of Health, is that you suspend the strike, but you put on hold the protest. Aren't you encouraged by the meetings that you've had with government officials? Were there no signs indicating that, okay, something may be in the offing?
You see, the Ministry of Health has not spoken to us since we started this strike, unfortunately. If they say they have done that, then we need evidence, because what we know is that, like I said, when you have an association agitating for very germane issues, even if they have gone on strike, as government, you still try to meet them, at least to reduce the duration of the strike. You don't just go and sit by and watch things deteriorate. And of course, when some other government officials are making efforts to resolve the issue, you still have a few individuals who want to prolong the issues by taking measures that will necessarily aggravate the problem. And our members felt ashamed that that was the position some people were taking. And of course, that even led to the plan for the protest, because we saw what they were doing.
Who exactly?
No, you see, some of the government officials who are supposed to call us to take responsibility, to start addressing the demands, they didn't call, and...
Who are you expecting to call?
We have a parent ministry.
Ministry of Health.
Ministry of Health. And like I said, they didn't call us since we declared the strike. They were just issuing statements.
Does it matter that there isn't any minister yet?
The permanent secretary of the Ministry of Labor, you just said that she's not... You see...
But they said they have a threshold, that they can't approve certain things because your demands falls under the threshold of the substantive minister. So they can't do it.
We have 8 demands, and I've been saying this. The most important demand is actually for government to recruit doctors and nurses to replace those who have left the system. Because I keep saying it, our members are suffering. Nigerians are suffering too. When you don't have the right number of doctors in the hospital, there's no way it's not going to affect the healthcare service delivery system. And nobody has come out to tell us that what we are saying is not true. Government on its own set up a ministerial committee that came up with a guideline. Since February this year, why hasn't that guideline been secularized? And people are still living. Do we rather wait until everybody leaves? Because the danger in not doing that is that even those who are outside waiting to be recruited are getting fed up and they are still living. So you may even get to a point where you release the secular, you won't see anybody.
So is there a guarantee that if it's secularized, doctors will not leave?
It will help to reduce the brain drain, because if you finish your youth service as a doctor and you are quickly recruited, you may not have any need to leave. But when you wait a year or two, working in the private hospitals that don't pay much, of course, you start making plans to leave the country.
I think that we can go to our colleagues in Lagos now for their questions.
Well, thank you, Maokwe. So now, Dr. Oji, that the federal government through the ministry that you've talked about is making an overture, and the Nigeria Medical Association, your parent organization, also is making overtures and saying there should be an intervention, that the federal government should do the needful and NMA should also be considerate. What considerations would your big NARD should be considerate? What considerations would the NARD make in the light of realities? I know you've said quite a lot about the things that the ministries need to do and all, but in terms of the employment, I don't know how much power the permanent secretary has if, for instance, there's an embargo on employment. So what considerations would the NARD be willing to make just to return to work while we expect a substantive minister in office?
Okay, we have started making the considerations, because if not, exactly by 10 a.m. this morning, our members all over the country would have started this mass protest, which will actually be quite unfortunate for any country to allow their doctors to be on the streets protesting. I don't know the kind of image that we send out to people. As I'm talking to you, it wasn't even an easy decision. We had our NEC yesterday, and it finished just roughly about 8 hours ago. Members were fully mobilized. They have printed banners, but out of respect for people who met us yesterday, the first meeting at the villa and the meeting with the Senate president, they assured us that the urgent demands that we have been talking about will be resolved in 24 hours. And so we gave them 72 hours. That's the first consideration. And I also need to correct this. You see, the secular one-for-one replacement that we've been talking about is squarely on the table of the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation. Like I keep saying, the guideline is there. It's just for it to be secularized. And essentially, you are not even increasing the numbers in the system. What that guideline is meant to achieve is that if 10 doctors leave this month in a particular hospital, you replace them with 10 doctors of the same cadre. Essentially, we are trying to help the system, because if people are leaving and you are not replacing them, the system will shut down. We have departments in the hospitals across this country that have shut down, and they are not functioning. They are not rendering the services they are supposed to render because the doctors to man them are not there. And these things are verifiable. And so it's not something that cannot happen, because the people that are supposed to do it are currently, it's not something that should wait for the ministers to be appointed. And we have received assurances that that will be done in a matter of days. And for the medical residency training fund, we have also been assured that it will be released in a matter of days. And so we hope that that will be done, so that we can meet again essentially in 2 days' time to consider our stand again and possibly begin to take steps to put all these things behind us and go back to work.
Dr. Oji, the last time you were here, you told us, particularly on the one-for-one, circular for one-for-one replacement, you know, that a particular notice that was put out was grossly undersubscribed, which was a confirmation of my concern that if indeed the government, you know, decided to begin a mass recruitment, you know, tomorrow, the brain drain is a huge stumbling block because of the mass exodus of doctors from the country. I wonder if that has changed significantly since the time that you were here, and if it has not, what really is your recommendation, you know, to salvage the situation in that regard?
You know, we have medical schools in this country that still train doctors. And so what happens is that when these doctors come out, do their housemanship and youth service, if you don't recruit them, they will just leave the country. So I agree that releasing that circular will not even stop brain drain completely, but it will certainly help at least to stop those who are leaving because they are not gainfully employed from leaving. Then we have also said severally what government needs to do to address this brain drain squarely. There is no mincing words. Everybody knows, even the government know that the main reason for this brain drain is because of the poor remuneration doctors and nurses are getting in this country. And we have also we have also tried to be scientific about it, that the salary structure we are using now was approved over 10 years ago. Since then, we've had inflation, we've had differentials in exchange rates and the price of PMS. So there has to be an effort to put all these things into consideration and try to improve on this pace so that people will also look at it and stay back. There also has to be other incentives that government should look at that will help to keep us here. For instance, we are resident doctors. We are supposed to reside in the hospitals. It makes our work easier. It also helps us to be readily available to take care of our patients. But I can tell you that more than 90% of tertiary health institutions we have in this country do not have accommodation for resident doctors in the hospitals, and all these things impact on our work. You know, so it's about time that government should sit down with us and the relevant agencies to begin to discuss ways of addressing this brain drain, because it is threatening the continued existence of health sector in this country, and we believe that the current government has enough experience, they have the capacity to address this.
Also, there are some items that you identified as being within the purview of state governments, and we know from in recent reports that Ogun State, for instance, has approved the payment of hazard allowances for its doctors. Now, since your strike began in July, have state governments, you know, made overtures to the association, you know, to initiate talks on plans at least to meet that aspect of your demands, such that you know, considerations can be made for the strike to be suspended in some states?
Yes, I must say that many states' governments are doing well. We are aware that Benue State government has paid their doctors the training fund for 2023. Ogun State has paid, Osun State has paid. We've also got information yesterday that Kaduna State is making effort to pay. Our members in Oyo State, they have also told us they are currently engaging their management, you know, to pay them. Delta State, we are informed, has also paid. And these states, they paid even before the federal government. We're also aware that Kwara States, as of last week, they were making effort to pay, and I think they have even been paid. So we want to, if all these states can pay, there's no reason why other states cannot pay. You know, and again, I want to go back to this issue of one-for-one replacement. As we are talking, even before we embarked on this nationwide strike, we have centers in this country that already embarked on strike because their management recruited doctors on locum employment, and they were not being paid. Obafemi Awolowo University Teaching Hospital, Ile-Ife, University College Hospital, Ibadan, University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital, Enugu, I think University of Calabar Teaching Hospital, and you have a number of them like that. They recruit doctors on local basis because they don't have waiver to recruit them properly. Some of them don't even pay them well. And then even the payment that they have agreed to make at the end of the month, you see them owing them. So many of them have been owed 6 months, and they are expected to be working in these hard times. So we believe that getting that circular and one-for-one replacement out will help to stop this from happening. There's no reason why doctors should be employed on locum basis when you know that the platform you are putting them into will not ensure that you pay them regularly every month.
Dr. Oji, just one more thing from me. Doctors build relationships with their patients. They have this personal, relationship that if they are not available, if certain patients don't see certain doctors, they sometimes turn down the overtures or intervention of any other medical practitioner that may be available to them. I don't know, how significant do you think that is in the concern that, a number of people are expressing, including the NMA, about this strike that is already ongoing? Because most certainly, not just the generic doctor-patient relationship is at stake here, but the personal relationship that some of your members of your association already built with their clients, with their patients, that they may not be able to go to anyone. So let's get a little personal. How is your leadership taking that into consideration, particularly for the patients?
Well, like I've tried to explain severally, it's actually because we love our patients, we want them to work. That is why we decided to embark on this struggle after several attempts to get the government to address the issues that have led to this struggle. We don't want to continue to see our patients die because we don't have enough doctors and other clinical staff in the hospital to take care of them. These things I'm saying are actually very clear, And for Nigerians who come to public hospitals, they will understand exactly what we are talking about. They are seeing the increasing waiting time in the hospital. They are seeing the cancellation of surgeries. And unfortunately, even sometimes many Nigerians will not understand. They will think it is our fault. They will take it out on us without knowing that, if you are supposed to have 3 general surgeons, for instance, in a particular unit, and you have 1, of course, the person cannot do the work of 3 people. And so it leads to cancellation of surgery. So it's because of this. And of course, even patients end up suffering immobility and mortality of inadequate care because of this inadequate number. And so it's very important that government should find a way of replacing those who are left. What is currently on the table is the one-for-one replacement. This is something they can quickly do to replace those who are left, to ensure that we have enough numbers to continue to treat our patients.
Well, I'm sure that a lot of Nigerians would like to add their voice to yours, to make it even louder. Because I know that when doctors go on strike, it's not because they think that it's government officials who are being deprived of treatment. It is Nigerians, and they're hoping that Nigerians who are being deprived of treatment would pressure their, government officials to ensure that doctors are attended to. But it would seem that over time, this strategy is losing its strength, so to speak, with the consistency of strikes. I think a lot of Nigerians can actually, as you said, relate with the issues which you have raised, especially when they visit government hospitals. And I think it's even worse for those who are married to people like you, because they are the ones who bear the brunt of the frustrations that you feel, in the hospitals. And I'm wondering, do you think that sometimes you wonder at what it would take to really get the urgency? Because time was when we never really heard of doctors go on strike. Now it's more frequent, so to speak. Do you think that, not just the enemy now, but NARD would have to sit down and re-strategize? Because right now you have decided to, initially you wanted to go on a protest just before you decided to suspend it. And it would seem that that got everybody interested again. Do you think that perhaps the idea could be, maybe we try a protest first before we go on strike? What do you think?
I agree with you. But you see, we are not seeing any other way, unfortunately. Because you also know that protest has its risk, you know. And like I said, yes, maybe we were considering that, but it will be embarrassing if any government allows their doctors to hit the street in protest for things that can easily be resolved. You know, maybe we'll consider that. But apart from that, unfortunately, and I have said this before, people don't get to know the legwork that we do in this Abuja and indeed other states where we have issues before we get to the stage of strike. Sometimes you literally spend weeks, days trying to get these things resolved. Even before we embarked on this strike, there was nowhere we didn't travel to, trying to meet whoever we believe will be able to intervene to get the people in the ministries to address this issue. But everything failed. In fact, we were not even able to meet those people. And like I said, even yesterday, I can tell you that for people who were around during the meetings, the government side, they were shocked that what we are asking for is even something that can easily be granted. And therefore, how are we allowed to go on strike? And yes, I agree that we may have had multiple strikes. But what is the reason? The reason is that usually when you start, they'll come and make a promise. And as a doctor, you look at your patients. You decide to take the promise and come back. After 1 month, 2 months, the promise is reached. This one-on-one replacement we are talking about, when we went on a 5-day strike in May, they put pen to paper. And I have shown that to some pressmen. We signed an agreement where it was clearly written that this circular will come out on or before 5th of June. The MOU is there. Everybody signed. And 2 months later, of course, that was why we didn't embark on definite strike then, because they gave us that assurance. Even this training fund, they told us that once they start operationalizing the fiscal year, the 2023 appropriation, that it will be paid. That started about 2 months ago. Why hasn't it been paid? So based on that, again, we shelved the strike in consideration of Nigerians. So why will government always reach an agreement with you and breach it?
Wait, are you saying that the demands right now is for their prompt response on the medical residency training fund and then the one-on-one replacement of doctors in hospitals?
Those are the ones we believe that they can quickly address. Then we have salary areas, skipping areas, but we are considerate. For those ones,
the commerce structure?
The commerce structure is being handled by the Nigerian Medical Association. They have raised issues with NECOLA, and we are an affiliate of NMA. We believe that government should be able to address that. But apart from that, we have salary areas, skipping areas, which we want government to start discussion. Tell us the plan you have in clearing them. If it is satisfactory, we cannot begin to see that they must pay now before we suspend strike. We know it will take a while.
I just want to also ask you quickly as we wrap up this segment now. I don't think we can end this without, expressing our condolences to you on the recent demise of Dr. Wairi Diaso, who lost her life in an elevator accident. First and foremost, I do not know if the actions that have been taken so far by the Lagos State government. They set up a committee, and recently we heard that a number of people have been suspended as a consequence, or some even fired as a consequence of that particular accident. I do not know how the NARD is reacting to that particular incident and whether you are satisfied with what has happened so far.
Well, we have not gotten the details of what has happened so far, but we are aware that the Lagos NMA is handling that, and they have done so well. We trust in their capacity to be able to hold government to account, because honestly, like we said, it's a very unfortunate incident, and of course, that is part of the reason why we keep talking. There's no reason why you will keep house officers in a 10-story building start a functional elevator. And you see, a complaint was made about this some years back, and nobody listened. Now, the doctor has died because of that. So it's still part of what we keep telling government, that attention should be paid to not just personnel, not just remuneration, but infrastructure, so that people will not be losing their lives needlessly. So we believe that the NMA Lagos has done well, and we are confident that they will continue what they are doing to ensure that everybody who is culpable in this unfortunate incident is brought to justice.
All right, Dr. Innocent Oji, President, Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, thank you for coming out.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're back in a moment. Stay with us.